What's up guys, welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be showing you how you can easily figure out chord progressions when making music. Now, one of the biggest obstacles that I've come across and that I've seen others encounter when making music is not knowing what chords to play. Now, for some people, it's easier to just sample something, or if you have a bit of an ear, you might even be able to come up with an original melody, but what about the chords? What do you do when you want to add a chord progression to that sample or to that original melody? Now, this can be particularly frustrating, especially if you're someone who's not as well versed in music theory as you might like. But fear not, because today I have a solution for you. So today we're going over a plugin called Scaler by the good people over at Plugin Boutique, which is designed to help music producers with scales, chords, and chord progressions. Now personally, I've been eyeing this plugin since June, which is when I first discovered it, and it's not a new plugin by any means, but it is an absolute game changer. Now real quick, I'm not being paid by Plugin Boutique to make this video. However, they did send me this copy for free so I can check it out, so huge shout out to them for being a supporter of this channel. But alright, this is Scaler, and before we even dive in, I want to give you guys a brief tour of the plugin. Now the first thing you'll notice is the super sleek user interface. I'm a huge fan of plugins with aesthetically pleasing interfaces, especially in a blacked out color scheme, and that is exactly what we get with Scaler. Now up at the top you'll notice two indicators, one for notes and one for chords, and they're both followed by a digital keyboard underneath. Now the first thing that I want you guys to notice is that every key on the digital keyboard is labeled with their corresponding note. So if I were to hit a key on my physical keyboard, I can tell what note I'm playing by looking at the label on the keyboard itself or on the note indicator above. Additionally, if I were to hit a set of keys that make up a chord, I can look at the indicators above and know what chord I'm playing, but also what notes make up that chord. Now real quick, if you go to the top right of the plugin where you see this little like speaker icon, hit the drop down arrow and you can actually change the sound of Scaler. By default, it'll be on the piano, but you could also change it to some synths, a string ensemble, and some guitars. Now alternatively, you could also route your own VST into Scaler, and to do that in Studio One, all you simply have to do is go over to your favorite VST that you want to use. I'm going to use Nexus here, and I'm going to use the Grand Piano Soft. I'm going to go to the arrow here at the top, and I'm going to go under Channel 1 and select Scaler. It'll output it to MIDI output 1. Then I'm going to go over to Scaler itself, same arrow, and under MIDI input 1, I'm going to select my Nexus. Then all you have to do is mute the native Scaler sound, and you get Nexus and Scaler. Now recently Scaler also had an update, so aside from the digital piano, you also have access to a guitar fretboard. So if you go to the left corner here, select the guitar icon, and now you have a guitar fretboard with all the corresponding notes. Additionally, you could also select this drop down arrow here and change the tuning of the guitar, should you choose to do so, but personally I'm going to stay with the piano for this tutorial. Moving on to the middle section of this plugin, the A section, we actually have a couple tabs, including Detect and Create, which we'll talk about in a minute, the Scales tab, which houses a large number of scales for you to choose from, and the first thing that I want you guys to notice is that not only do you get the scale name and the type, but also the style, which is good to indicate what kind of mood that scale might be best suited for. You can also filter through different scales, so let's say for example you're looking specifically for minor scales, you can go under Type, select Minor, and it gives you all of the minor scales. But let's say you're specifically looking for the F minor scale, just go under Note, select the F, and there you are, F minor scale. Now of course it tells you that this is best suited for serious, sad, emotional, and sentimental music, and you could actually audition the scale by hitting this little play button here. Moving on, the Songs tab houses a large number of genres if you want to discover chords based on those specific musical styles. So for example, we have a few EDM chords, we have some house chords, we have some neo-soul, which are some of my favorite, and pop, among many others. The Artist tab will let you scroll through a couple chord progressions that were made by other artists that are available for you to use. And finally, the User tab will let you save any chord progressions that you've created. Finally, at the very bottom, we have the Chord Sequencer, which is where you will actually sequence and arrange any chords you have selected to then export or record into your DAW. But okay, now that you guys know a little bit about the layout, let's talk about application, because there's a couple ways to use this plugin. Now the first scenario would be when you already have a specific key or scale in mind. Let's say you have a sample, or maybe you created an original melody that you already know the key and the scale of. All you have to do at that point point, like we did here, is kind of shuffle through and find the specific key and scale that you want to work with. Let's say, for example, for the purposes of this tutorial, that we want to operate in F minor. We find that and it pulls that up here. Now, as soon as we click on it, I want you guys to notice a couple things. First is that the keyboard up top highlighted the notes in that scale in blue. So we know that it's F, G, G sharp, A sharp, C, C sharp, D sharp, and back to F. That is the F minor scale. On top of that, now we have a new section here in the middle, the B section, and this gives us specific chords that will fit well with the F minor scale. So we have F minor, of course, G diminished, A flat major, B flat minor, C minor, D flat major, and E flat major. Now this is where it gets interesting, because here not only can you change the octave of the chords, but you could also change the structure. Let's say, for example, that you don't like the simple triad structure of a chord. You can go to any chord and add a 7th, a 9th, an 11th, and even a 13th. Additionally, you could also mess around with chord variations and even the chord voicings. Now, one thing that I want to point out real quick here is that if you go over to any chord that was suggested, so let's say an F minor, and I hover over it, up at the top, you'll notice on the keyboard that it highlights the notes that make up that chord. Additionally, if you go over to the top right, you're gonna see a little button called Scale Lock. Now, basically what this does is that if you hit that button, it will effectively lock all of the notes on the scale to only the white keys to make it easier for you to play. So as I mentioned earlier, this F minor scale is gonna have a couple sharps, which are these here, the black keys, and I would have to play those if I want to play that scale. But if I hit the Scale Lock, all I have to do is now hit the white keys and I will play the appropriate notes of that scale. So, but anyway, moving back down to the chords, here you can actually audition them as I mentioned before. And once you get the specific sequence that you want, you can actually drag them down to the sequencer. So let me do that now. Now here again, you can change the octave of every chord, but now also the inversion. Now from here, there's two ways to get these chords into your DAW, and the first is simply to drag them over. So if you go back to Scalar, there's a button here on the bottom right called Drag MIDI. Click and hold, and then just simply drag that MIDI information over to your favorite VST. I'm gonna drop mine in the Nexus track here. So as we can see on the piano roll, it brought over the specific note information that makes up each chord. So, and when I play it, we get that progression that I created. My only gripe with this is that you can't fully customize the length of each chord to get the exact chord progression that you want. So if you go back over to Scalar, you'll see this little note icon at the bottom right here. If you click on it, this is where you will select the note duration for each chord, and you'll have anything from an eighth, a quarter note, a half note, a full beat, and 2 beats. Now the problem with this is that I can't go in there and specifically tell the software, well, I want the first chord to last 2 beats, I want the second one to last a quarter note, I want the third one to last, you know, just 1 beat. Whatever I pick will be for all the chords in the chord set. So then what ends up happening is that, let's say for example, I just choose a beat for all of them to make it easy, and I drag this over to my VST, I would have to literally go in here and manually change the duration to get the specific structure that I want with these chords. Now this is not a big deal, but how great would it be if I could go in here and select how long I want each chord in my set to be, maybe have another tier here, so octave inversion and then length, and that way I can export a fully finished chord progression without having to mess with anything in my piano roll. But okay, that's the first way. The second way is to use the bind MIDI feature. Now if you take a look at Scalar on the top right next to the digital keyboard, you'll see this bind MIDI section. Now if I click on the B button there, effectively what happens is that the chords in my B section here, the suggested chords, get binded to the keys on my keyboard, usually starting with C. So if I press a C key, I'm actually playing the F minor here. If I play the D, G diminished, and so on and so forth. And you can actually tell on the keyboard what keys are triggering those chords. Additionally, you can also bind this to the actual progression that you created. So switch this from B to C, and now you get the progression that we created earlier, starting with C again. So now to record this, all you simply have to do is go back over to your software, so in my case Studio One, and hit the record key and start playing. And there you go. Now, my only complaint with this is that unless you're using scalar, it's extremely restrictive. Now, if I open up the piano roll, you'll see that the only thing that was recorded was the note that I hit on my keyboard, not all the notes that make up that chord. So then what ends up happening is that if I play this on scalar, I get the chords. But if I pull this down to another VST like Nexus, I get only the single note that I played. Now, I don't even know if this is possible, but if there was a way for me to use the bind MIDI keys here and play only one note, but actually record all the notes that make up that chord and see them on my piano roll, it would make it easy for me to duplicate that MIDI, add it to another VST, and keep layering my beat that way. But okay, that is one way to figure out chords. Now, the other is personally my favorite, and that includes the detect feature. So if you go back over to scalar, go ahead and go over to the detect tab here, and you'll notice that you'll get kind of like this recording section with a start button and a clear button. Now, the way this works is, let's say you're someone like me where you like to come to the studio with an open slate and you just pull up a VST or a piano and start playing around with different chords. Maybe you make up an actual melody that you like. How do you get chord progressions that go well with whatever you just created? This is where the detect feature comes in. But okay, jumping back into scalar, go ahead and hit the detect tab, and I'm gonna show you guys two ways, one with chords and one with a melody. So let's say I came in here and maybe I came up with a chord progression. Let's say, okay, so what you would do once you have that down, hit the start button and just start playing. Now, after you're done, just hit the stop button, and as you can see, it told me exactly what chords I played. So it looks like I played an A flat major, a C minor, G minor, A flat major, B flat major, and G minor. Now, on top of telling me what chords I played, it also told me what scale they're most likely to fall under. So it looks like I fell under the A flat Lydian mode, which is hopeful, dreamy, yearning, and ethereal. Now, the other way to do it is that sometimes I come in here and I just start playing melodies and something just sticks. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's hit the start button and I'll just come up with something real quick. So as you can see, let's hit the stop button here. It told me what notes I played, and again, what scale they are likely to fall under. So it looks like this is B flat minor, and it's serious, sad, emotional, and sentimental. Now, of course, for all these, you also get the chord suggestions here at the bottom. So B flat minor, C diminished, D flat major, so on and so forth, and you can continue to then export them in the two ways that I showed you earlier. Now, as you can see, this is absolutely game changing, because sometimes as producers, maybe we're out and about in the street and we get this melody stuck in our head, or maybe some sort of, I don't know, progression. Whenever we come back to the studio and we lay it down, no problem. But what about the accompanying music? This helps you get through that so much quicker now. My only suggestion for this would be to have something like the chord track feature in Studio One, where instead of just analyzing my MIDI information, the notes that I played over my MIDI keyboard, if I could load up a sample, like an actual audio WAV file, have it detect what's going on and then tell me what key it's in, what scale, what notes, whatever, it would be super game changing. So there you have it. That in essence is Scalar. I think this thing is a powerhouse and a must for any producer. I've actually included this now into my production template. So whenever I pop this open to start making beats or music, I actually start producing in Scalar and then move from there. Now I'm gonna link Scalar down in the description box in case you guys wanna check it out. But as always, like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you're not already, but I'll see you guys on the next one.